I've also experienced something that's really kind of sad, and that is I have been criticized quite a few times or commented on about the way I dress or the way I look. And I will say this, that I promise you I can wear safety equipment and hard steel-toed shoes with the best of them. However, when I'm in the office, I don't believe I need to do that. I can do whatever I want to do. Hello, everyone. Thank you for the very nice welcome. As you heard, my name is Sandra Benson. My current position, I have a couple. I work as the vice president at Procore, and Procore is one of the leading construction software companies. And you're thinking, what does that have to do with infrastructure? Well, I have a couple other things that I do. I serve on the National Institute of Building Sciences Board of Directors. That is something where we apply science to construction, specifically infrastructure construction. We do a report to the President of the United States every year. And I serve on another board, actually two more, and do some guest professoring. So, in my spare time, but I'm really honored to be here. So I've been in this industry, and I always struggle with saying this, but I've been in this industry for over 30 years. So I never know whether I should say 3 decades or 30 years, but it's pretty much the same. So I don't know, when we went through the slides earlier, and with all the different industries, you saw the percentage, right, of senior management. I don't know if you noticed, but the very lowest one was in infrastructure. It was 2.5%. And that just makes me really, really sad. Hopefully it makes you sad as well. Arguably, infrastructure construction is one of the largest industries in the world, depending on which way you look at that. So to that end, I've actually been asked just to share my own personal story on how I don't even think of cracking it, I shattered the glass ceiling. And also want to give you a little bit of idea of why infrastructure construction is such a great opportunity for women. Okay, so I'll start here. Most common question I get is, how did you end up in the construction industry? And I would love to be able to tell you that I was a little girl who was always building things and playing with Legos and those kind of things. And not one of those things is true. I was the most girly girl Barbie doll person you would know. But I had 2 brothers and myself. And my father, remember this was 30 plus years ago, told both my brothers that they should go and get an engineering degree and that I should go and get liberal arts, maybe marketing, something like that. One of the reasons I've been successful in this industry is I don't always do what someone suggests. So I didn't really appreciate that. So I decided I was going to get the engineering degree. And ironically, neither of my brothers did. So at any rate, I just thought that you might want to know that. So if you're working with, your daughters, your sisters, just because they're a girly girl doesn't mean they can't succeed in this industry. So I've had a lot of amazing experiences, and I think you heard a couple that I have now. I actually started at an engineering firm. I was the only woman at the firm that wasn't a secretary, which I think is now called administrative assistant. And over time, I moved into construction technology and even construction finance. So that's actually one of the things I love about this summit is we're talking about engineering, we're talking about infrastructure, construction, finance, technology. There's a place for all of that if you come and join this area, okay? So the first time I made what I'll call a crack in the glass ceiling was when I was promoted to the Global Industry Director at Oracle. Global Industry Director of Engineering and Construction at Oracle. So I felt like I cracked that. It wasn't too bad. I've had a couple different executive roles since then. I served as CIO for a $10 billion infrastructure contractor, oil and gas, the first one they had. So that was interesting. And this next one is my longest title in my whole career. And I served as worldwide head of engineering, construction, and real estate at Amazon Web Services. So probably gives you a little bit of an idea of the different areas that I played. So had I not done some of those choices, I would still be working in an engineering company, just doing consulting engineering. Nothing wrong with that, by the way. But just to know, you can use lots of skills, right, to move on from there. So the other thing that I get asked a lot is, well, if it's 2.5% now, and percentage of women in the industry globally is 10 to 15%, here in this country, you're at 10.4. So, you know, all of that is somewhat disappointing when you think about 50% of the population, give or take, is women, right? So I think we have a lot of opportunity there. But I do get asked, well, when you started way back when, what was it? And the sad part here is we didn't track it. There was no one who tracked how many women were in construction. There was no one who tracked how many senior management they were. But I can pretty much say my best guess would have been maybe 4%. And I didn't know maybe 2 women, at least in the U.S., that had any kind of a senior management role. So that's just a little bit for you to know. So we've talked about a huge gender imbalance, right? And that's certainly, we say huge, that's even an understatement. So the things I really wanted to talk to you guys about is I'll give you some of my experiences. And a lot of times I think people think that this industry is dirty and it's, why would I want to do that? I don't see any women, in this kind of a world. And some of that is quite true. There's also a lot of harassment you hear about. The equipment, personal equipment doesn't fit, it's not made for women. I could go on, but I'm sure most of you have an idea of what that is. And I've had a lot of that too, harassment, all of those kinds of things. I've also experienced something that's really kind of sad, and that is I have been criticized quite a few times or commented on about the way I dress or the way I look. And I will say this, that I promise you I can wear safety equipment and hard steel-toed shoes with the best of them. However, when I'm in the office, I don't believe I need to do that. I can do whatever I want to do. And when we talk about that, I think women sometimes think they need to fit in. But let's think about a nursing job. Frequently, nursing jobs are mostly held by women. But there are male nurses. Do you think that they need to start dressing like the females? I don't think so. So there should be no real issue here. So at any rate, so just think about a few of those kinds of things. The other thing that's happened a lot with me is I've been the only one in the room, the only woman in the room. And I have an interesting perspective on that. You can take that as one or two things. You can say, well, I'm the only woman, so I'm going to be really quiet and just sit here. Or you can pull out your inner Wonder Woman or inner superpower woman and say, I'm the only one here. I'm going to make an impact. And as you heard about why I chose this career, that's how that worked, right? So for me, some of those kind of things, you have to look at, well, some issues and events, no matter what industry you're in, some of them, they're worth fighting for. And some of them are like, is it really worth that? And sometimes it is. So I will give you two examples. As I mentioned, I first started off an engineering firm, the only female in the company, and our company did a lot of work for Delta Airlines in what was called airport fueling, i.e. infrastructure. And their biggest client was Delta. And so our CEO was very, very involved in that. And every week he'd go to a meeting. Every week he'd take one of the males, every single time. This went on for months and months. One day, I don't know, maybe they weren't available, they were sick, who knows, but he was stuck with me. And so, he drugged me out there. And honestly, that's when I really got into enjoying the concept of meeting with clients and getting out of the office and that kind of thing. And over time, he started bringing me to more and more. And also, ironically, I started going to meetings, internal meetings, that I didn't even know were happening. And so I got invitations there. So we talk a lot in this industry about mentorship and sponsorship. But as we were coming back from Delta, you got to remember, this guy was probably 60, and this was in the 90s, so it was a while ago. So he sat down and he looked at me and he goes, you're the smartest woman I've ever met. Now, there's two ways you could take that, right? You could let your head grow on fire and go, what do how dare you say that, But I also had to consider the situation. Was he trying to insult me? And he really wasn't. In his perspective, I think he really thought that was a compliment. I don't know what I would do if that happened today, but at that point, that was where it was. So ironically, it was that gentleman who inspired me to believe I could take a chance and do anything that I wanted to. And so he never knew that he was my sponsor. There was no official sponsor thing. He was just that person. And I really thank him for that. But then there are sometimes you really do need to fight. So when I mentioned I was a CIO for this $10 billion oil and gas contractor, as you can imagine, where a lot of oil and gas refineries are not really in the nicest places in the world, right? And so they initially came out with this list, and the list was where men could go, what countries they could go to. And then there were some where, women could not. And I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work for me. So I wasn't as nice in the second situation. And they said, well, you can send one of your staff to get the requirements. And I'm like, no. And so this took a little while, but eventually I got them to understand that I'm an executive. I need to be where I need to be regardless, right? So at any rate, so that's what I did. And that point ended, I went to 34 countries, I believe, in that point. So anyway, worked out pretty well for me. And even going to a Chinese nuclear facility, which is, pretty crazy, huh? So let's talk about now, that's just a few examples of my own. But as we know, there's a gender imbalance here, right? So, but what do we think why is that? And I believe we have a perception problem in construction. We have not many people think of it as a glamorous thing, right? It isn't, right? It's, it's dirty, it's dusty, it's those kinds of things. But it's also a very noble industry, and I don't know that many people think of that. In today's world, if you ask someone what a noble industry is, they're going to say something like a doctor or something along those lines. But if you didn't have infrastructure, which would be the hospital, the roads, the airports, any of those things, where would it be? So a couple of pieces of information for you. Women, we know, were in construction in 1664. And we know the first roads and bridges were built in 1708. We also know that this was not only a noble profession in those days, it was considered a very noble, to the point that there were many people knighted, sirs, of all that kind of thing. Not really sure what happened, but I don't know about you, but I never hear them go, wow, what a noble industry you're in, right? So anyway, so yes, there's still job sites, still dirty things. But as we talk about technology, think about this. Now, with autonomous vehicles, someone can sit in the construction trailer and operate 4 pieces of machinery at the exact same time, right? So maybe it's more of a dusty industry in certain ways. Technology is huge. And if I had the time, I would go into a lot of it, but AI, ML, drones, robotics, 3D printing, all of these things allow you to have a career in this industry and not necessarily do what you think you have to do, which is out, I don't know, hammering or something along those lines that people seem to think. So I also want to make sure you understand the infrastructure is not roads and bridges, right? It's data centers, it's airports, wastewater treatment plants, it's all of those things. So I don't know about you, but most of you guys probably want to feel like you're giving back to society, right? So I'll give you just a really quick one. During COVID, at least in the United States, our ports had not been updated in literally 100 years. So even though there were supply chain issues, those ships could not get in because we were still dealing with old ports. Now, you guys are way more adept at that, right? But there's another piece, and I'm sure you all know about climate crisis, right? It's on and on, whether it's man-made or natural. And I don't know if you know this, surprised me, the built environment is responsible for 39% of greenhouse gases. So if that's an issue for you, this is the place you want to be. Last piece I'll go into is where women, 2 points earlier, can see things from a different way. How many of you guys are thinking about getting an electric vehicle or have one? Nobody? Okay, thank you. So all the roads and bridges generally that are being built now were built for gas-powered vehicles. I don't know if you think about this, but a battery in an electric vehicle weighs a ton. And that's not exactly an exaggeration in some of them. But what that means is those roads are going to erode even faster. So there was a woman who actually challenged that and brought that up. It would have never happened otherwise. Okay, so maybe that gives you a little bit of an idea of sort of what we can do and where we can go. So I wish I had more time. I hope to meet you guys later. But at Procore, the company that I work for, we have a mission, and our mission is to improve the lives of everyone in construction. But my perspective is, if you think about saving lives, if you think about climate change, those kind of things, it's my belief that if we can do those things, we can actually improve the lives of everyone on this planet. And I hope you will join me in that journey. Thank you.